10 years ago, I lived in a peaceful little village surrounded by green fields, simple homes, and quiet streets. I was just 18 back then, young, full of dreams, and eager to feel love for the first time. I had never known heartbreak or betrayal, only the hope that love would be beautiful, just like in the stories I used to read. In that same village lived a boy named Adam. He was 23, charming, and very good-looking. Everyone knew him. Many girls in the village liked him, some secretly, others openly. I wasn't any different. I liked him too. His smile was easy, his laugh was warm, and when he looked at someone, it felt like the world stopped for a second. At least that's how it felt to me. My mother warned me about him. "He's not a good boy," she said. "Stay away from Adam." My aunt said the same. "He plays with girls' hearts," she whispered one evening. But I didn't want to hear any of that. I was young, and I believed in my heart. I believed that I was different, that Adam would treat me kindly, and maybe even love me back. One Saturday night, our village held a dance party. It was a tradition, something the whole community looked forward to. My friends and I planned to go, but when I asked my mother for permission, she hesitated. "It's not safe," she said. I begged her. "Please, Mom, I'll stay with my friends. I promise." After a long pause, she agreed, though I could still see the worry in her eyes. That evening, I wore my favorite dress. My friends and I arrived early, but slowly the small hall filled with music, lights, and laughter. And then Adam arrived. He walked in with his usual confidence, smiled at everyone, and then his eyes met mine. My heart beat faster. I didn't expect him to notice me, but he did. He walked over and asked, "Would you like to dance?" I could hardly believe it. I smiled and nodded. We danced under the colorful lights, and with every step, my heart soared. During the slower songs, he held my hand. Between songs, we talked. He was funny and gentle. He made me feel seen, special. I forgot about the warnings. I forgot about everything. When the party ended, Adam asked, "Want to go for a drive?" I hesitated for just a moment, but the excitement was too strong. "Yes," I said. We drove around the village slowly. The night was peaceful, the stars were shining, and the air was cool. I felt safe. I thought, maybe this is love. But the moment changed too quickly. He turned the car down a road I didn't recognize. It was dark, quiet, and far from the village. He parked the car in a lonely place with no lights, no people, no sound except the rustling trees. He moved closer to me. I felt uncomfortable and told him, "I want to go home." But he didn't listen. He grabbed my hand and tried to kiss me. I pulled away and shouted, "Stop!" He looked annoyed and said, "You're boring." Then he opened the car door and pushed me out, just like that. I stood there, in the middle of nowhere. My heart was pounding. It was cold. I felt broken and scared. Alone in the darkness, I began to walk. That night, I didn't just lose my trust in Adam. I lost a piece of my innocence, too. It was a night I would never forget. As I walked down that dark, empty road, the air felt colder than ever. My shoes weren't meant for walking long distances, and each step sent pain through my feet. I had no light, no phone, and no one to call. The village felt far, too far, and the silence around me only made my thoughts louder. My heart ached, not just from the walk, but from the realization that Adam never really cared. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept moving. Every step felt like a punishment for not listening to my mother, for not believing my friends when they warned me. But back then, all I could see was love. Now, all I could feel was betrayal. It took me almost an hour to reach home. When I opened the door, I saw my reflection in the mirror, tired, broken, and cold. My dress was dusty, and my shoes had left small blisters on my heels. I sat on the edge of my bed and cried like I had never cried before. Not just because of what Adam did, but because I realized I gave my heart to someone who didn't deserve it. The next morning, my eyes were swollen from crying. My mother saw me and knew something was wrong. But I didn't tell her. How could... Alpha, I was ashamed, not of what had happened, but of how deeply I had trusted Adam. I didn't want to hear, "I told you so." Instead, I went to meet my friends. We sat under the old tree near the market. I told them everything, how he invited me to dance, how he took me for a drive, and how he pushed me out of the car when I said no. As I spoke, their faces changed. One of them, Sophie, reached out and held my hand. "You're not the only one," she said softly. Another girl, Layla, nodded slowly. "He did the same to me 2 years ago," she whispered. My heart stopped for a second. "What?" I asked. "We thought you knew," Sophie said. "Everyone in the village knows what Adam is like. He acts sweet at first, then changes." I sat there in shock. All this time I thought I was special. I thought what I had with Adam was different. But now I realized I was just another girl he used. The truth hit hard, but it also gave me strength. I wasn't alone. I wasn't the first. And I could decide to be the last. That night, I didn't cry. I looked at myself in the mirror again. This time, I saw someone stronger. Someone who survived. I promised myself that I wouldn't let one bad experience define me. I would move forward. I would study, work hard, and build the life I deserved. And so I did. 2 years later, I left the village. I moved to the city, got a job at a small bookstore, and started a new life. I didn't have much, but I had peace. I didn't look for love again. Not yet. I needed time to heal, and I gave myself that time. Every morning, I woke up feeling just a little better. And with every step forward, the pain of that night grew smaller. What Adam did to me was wrong. But what I did after that, how I chose to grow, to learn, and to become stronger, that's what truly matters. I didn't forget that night. But I no longer let it control me. I had changed, and my story was only beginning. Life in the city felt different. Faster, louder, but also more freeing. I was 20 years old now, working at a small bookstore tucked between a quiet cafe and a flower shop. Every morning I walked to work, breathing in the scent of fresh paper and coffee. I found peace in the rows of books, in the soft chatter of customers, and in the way the city allowed me to disappear and start fresh. One afternoon, the weather changed suddenly. Dark clouds rolled in, and soon heavy rain began to fall. I had no umbrella. I stood under a tree, hoping the rain would stop, but it only poured harder. That's when I saw him, a tall man with a kind face, holding a big red umbrella. He walked toward me with a gentle smile. "Do you need help?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, thank you." He walked me all the way to the bookstore. We didn't talk much, but I felt something. Safe, warm, different. Before leaving, he said, "I work nearby. Maybe I'll visit again." I smiled, not knowing if I'd actually see him. But the very next day he came in. He bought a book. The day after that, he returned and bought another. Soon he was visiting every day, not just for the books, but to talk. His name was Daniel. He worked in an office nearby, and he had the softest way of speaking and a sense of humor that made me laugh without trying. We spoke about everything: books, movies, dreams. He told me he had a younger sister he adored. He wanted to travel the world, see places he'd only read about. I told him about my small village, about my parents who lived far away, and about the bookstore that now felt like home. One day, Daniel asked, "Would you like to have coffee with me sometime?" I paused, heart beating fast. After all I had been through, part of me was still scared to trust again. But there was something honest in his eyes. I nodded. Yes, I'd like that. We went to a cozy cafe nearby. We sat by the window sipping coffee, laughing over silly stories. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. With Daniel, I didn't have to pretend. I could just be myself. As days turned into weeks, our connection deepened. We went to the park, walked by the river, visited museums. Sometimes we just sat and talked for hours. It wasn't just romance. It was friendship, support, peace. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone truly saw me. Not as a girl to impress or control, but as a person with thoughts, dreams, and feelings. But then one day, Daniel didn't come. Not the next day either. Or the next. I waited. At the bookstore, eyes always glancing at the door. A week passed. Then two. I felt that old sadness creeping in again. My heart wondered, was I foolish to believe again? Had he simply disappeared? I wanted to call him, but I had no number. We had never exchanged contact details, trusting in our daily meetings. I started to doubt. Maybe this was just another mistake. One evening, as rain began to fall once more, I walked home with a heavy heart. The world felt colder, lonelier, but then I saw it, a red umbrella. Standing outside my building was Daniel, holding that same umbrella, waiting for me. My heart jumped. "Where were you?" I asked, almost breathless. He looked into my eyes, softly saying, "My sister was very sick. I had to visit her. I didn't mean to disappear." Relief flooded through me. I smiled. "I'm glad you're back." "Let's walk," he said. And under the same red umbrella where our story began, we walked together in the rain, with quiet joy blooming in our hearts. After that rainy evening, things changed, but in the best way. Daniel and I became closer, not just in small conversations or daily bookstore visits, but in the way we shared life. We still talked about books and movies, but now we also talked about the future. He'd often walk me home from the bookstore, holding that red umbrella if it rained, or just walking beside me if the sun was out. The more time I spent with him, the more I saw what a gentle, thoughtful person he truly was. He didn't try to impress me with big words or expensive things. He simply listened, cared, and stayed. Sometimes we would visit the park. We would sit on the bench near the old fountain. I'd tell him about my childhood dreams, how I once wanted to become a writer or maybe an artist. He encouraged me. "You should still write," he'd say. "You have stories worth telling." Daniel told me he still wanted to travel the world. He had a map in his room with pins on all the places he hoped to visit: Paris, Tokyo, Cairo, New York. I'd never dreamed that big, but listening to him made me wonder, what if? One weekend, we went to a small museum together. As we walked through the halls, looking at paintings and sculptures, I noticed how he stopped to really look. He didn't just see the art, he felt it. That made me admire him even more. But as our relationship grew, so did my worries. In the past, I had trusted someone who broke that trust. My heart still carried old scars. Sometimes I'd ask myself, what if Daniel changed? What if he left like the others? What if this happiness wasn't real? Daniel noticed my moments of silence. One evening, while we were sitting under the stars in his backyard, he gently asked, "Do you ever get scared?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes," I said softly. "Sometimes I think, this is too good to last." He looked at me, eyes calm and warm. "It's okay to be scared," he said, "but I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to stay, if you'll let me." His words reached deep into my heart. I smiled through tears. I didn't know were coming. "I want to believe that," I whispered. "Then let's take things slow," he said. "No pressure, no big promises, just honest moments, one day at a time." And that's exactly what we did. Daniel met my co-workers at the bookstore. They liked him instantly. My boss, an older lady who had watched me come out of my shell, smiled one day and said, "He's a good one. Don't let fear stop you from being happy." I started to believe that maybe I could trust again, not just Daniel, but life itself. We had quiet days and exciting ones. We went for ice cream in the middle of cold evenings, just because. We watched silly movies and laughed until our sides hurt. On Sundays, we'd cook dinner together. I'd mess up the recipe, and he'd pretend it tasted amazing anyway. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. One evening, as we walked hand in hand through the park, he stopped under a tree and looked at me. "Do you know what I like most about us?" he asked. I shook my head. "We don't need grand things. We just fit." That night I knew. I wasn't just healing. I was growing. And with Daniel by my side, I was finally ready to leave the past behind. Life moved forward gently, like a quiet stream after a storm. With Daniel by my side, Each day felt brighter, filled with peace, not drama. We didn't rush into big decisions. We just kept sharing small, honest moments, and those moments built a strong bond between us. About a year after we met, Daniel brought up the idea of moving in together. "I don't want to change your life," he said. "I just want to be part of it." We found a small house on the edge of the city. It wasn't fancy. It had 2 bedrooms, a tiny garden, and creaky wooden floors. But to us, it felt perfect. On the day we moved in, it rained softly. As we stood on the porch, holding that same red umbrella from the day we met, we laughed at how it had followed our journey. In our new home, we created our own world. I kept working at the bookstore, and Daniel continued at his office job. On weekends, we planted flowers. He painted the kitchen yellow because he said it reminded him of my smile. Sometimes we would sit by the window during storms, sipping tea and remembering the past, how far we'd come. I told him about the night I walked home alone years ago, heartbroken and cold. He held my hand and whispered, "You never have to walk alone again." One morning, I found out I was pregnant. I was shocked, scared, and overwhelmed, but also happy. When I told Daniel, he didn't speak at first. He just hugged me tight and long. "We're ready," he finally said, smiling through tears. "We're going to be okay." Pregnancy wasn't easy. There were hard days, tiredness, mood swings, worries, but Daniel was there for everything. He read books, cooked dinner, held my hand during checkups. He even talked to my growing belly, saying, "You're going to have the best mom." When our baby was born, a little girl, we named her Hope, because that's what she brought into our lives. A new beginning. A fresh chapter. A reason to believe in the beauty of the future. Hope had Daniel's eyes and my smile. She loved being rocked to sleep, hearing bedtime stories, and lying on Daniel's chest while he hummed softly. Our home was filled with laughter, soft baby cries, toys on the floor, and the smell of fresh cookies on weekends. It wasn't perfect, no, home ever is, but it was full of love, real, strong, honest love. Sometimes I'd stand by the window watching the rain outside and think about how different life used to be, about how broken I once felt, about how a red umbrella, a quiet smile, and one act of kindness changed everything. I realized the past didn't have to define me. My pain didn't have to control me. My mistakes weren't the end. They were just the beginning of something better. Now Daniel and I sit on the porch with Hope in our arms, and we tell her stories. Not just fairy tales, but real ones, about courage, about healing, about choosing love even when you're afraid. I tell her, the world may hurt you sometimes, but there are still good people. There's still love. And you are living proof that beautiful things grow from broken places. As we look at the sky and see the clouds drifting, I feel at peace. I know storms will come again. That's life. But now I have my umbrella, my anchor, and my reason to smile. We walk through life together, with love, with hope, and with hearts full of quiet strength.